Is Donald Trump a rogue president inciting acts of war without congressional approval? Or is this just political hysteria? Watch this video very carefully all the way to the end, because you might be shocked to find out what I dug up from the annals of history. So hit the like button right now and post in the comments, I am ready. So what's all the fuss about? Well, let's watch this.
The Pentagon announcing another U.S. strike on an alleged drug trafficking boat decimated off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary Pete Hegseth says 4 men were killed. He described them as narco-terrorists. Despite questions about evidence and due process, the administration insists lethal strikes like these will continue. Here's ABC's chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz.
Tonight, the Pentagon releasing this video of a deadly military airstrike on what officials say, without providing evidence, was a drug boat attempting to smuggle narcotics into the U.S. The massive explosion sending debris raining down in international waters just off the coast of Venezuela. Flames shooting from the vessel. The U.S. says 4 people were killed.
The president has directed these actions, these strikes against Venezuelan drug cartels and these boats, consistent with his responsibility to protect the United States interests abroad.
Secretary Pete Hegseth saying our intelligence, without a doubt, confirmed that this vessel was trafficking narcotics. The people on board were narco-terrorists. Today's strike is the 4th known U.S. attack on suspected Venezuelan drug boats since early September.
We have proof. All you have to do is look at the cargo that was like it's spattered all over the ocean. Big bags of cocaine and fentanyl all over the place.
And with the Trump administration has now told Congress as rationale for the strikes that they consider drug smugglers unlawful combatants with whom we are involved in armed conflict. But critics question the legality.
Now, that's just one of the many strikes that we have seen in the last few months. And the one that's causing all the controversy is the boat that got hit twice. Of course, we have the story where after the initial strike, there were 2 innocent victims hanging onto the boat, clinging for their lives, right? And then they had a second strike, killing the last 2 individuals. And that, of course, is why there's such a big uproar about Pete Hegseth committing a war crime. Now, those 2 individuals did die, and that's a sad story. But keep in mind, there's no mention about the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the United States who lose their lives because of the fentanyl, the cocaine, all the drugs that are smuggled in by these same boats. But why the uproar over no congressional approval? Are these really war crimes? Is this something that President Donald Trump can be held liable for, or Secretary of War Pete Hegseth? Or is this purely partisan politics? Now, here's one fact that a lot of people don't consider. People don't complain over the actions of the president from within their own party, no matter what they do. Now, if you don't believe that, hang on a second, because I've dug back into history and I'm going to show you some actions by a previous president, and it might shock you. Let's cut to the first clip.
Tonight, with a new Iraqi government in place and following consultations with allies abroad and Congress at home, I can announce that America will lead a broad coalition to roll back this terrorist threat. We will conduct a systematic campaign of airstrikes against these terrorists. Working with the Iraqi government, we will expand our efforts beyond protecting our own people and humanitarian missions so that we're hitting ISIL targets as Iraqi forces go on offense. Moreover, I've made it clear that we will hunt down terrorists who threaten our country wherever they are. That means I will not hesitate to take action against ISIL in Syria as well as Iraq. We will send an additional 475 service members to Iraq. As I've said before, these American forces will not have a combat mission. We will not get dragged into another ground war in Iraq. But they are needed to support Iraqi and Kurdish forces with training, intelligence, and equipment.
So there you saw it. President Barack Obama taking care of business, defending the citizens of the United States. But here's the question. Did President Barack Obama have congressional approval before he launched those strikes? The shocking answer is no. President Obama did not seek or receive formal congressional approval for the airstrikes against the Islamic State. He ordered them under his authority as commander-in-chief, relying on existing authorizations and constitutional powers rather than a new vote from Congress. So how about the context of these ISIS airstrikes that took place in 2014? Well, Obama authorized the U.S. fighter jets and drones to conduct the airstrikes against ISIS targets in Iraq and Syria. At the time, the White House did not formally ask Congress for authorization. Obama argued that he had sufficient authority under the 2001 Authorization for Use of Military Force, the acronym is AUMF, against Al-Qaeda, and the 2002 Iraq AUMF. Well, the Justice Department later issued an opinion stating that the president had congressional authority to order targeted strikes without prior congressional approval, since the operations were limited in scope and aimed at protecting U.S. interests and allies. Of course, there was a whole legal debate that came from that, but he made it in the clear. Now, we don't just stop there. Let's go to this next video clip. We're going to take it to a whole nother level when you hear Barack Obama say something that would absolutely shock people today if the current president made the same statement. Cut to the clip.
President Obama said the threat of terror will never be eliminated, but that 12 years after 9/11, the fight can and must be conducted on a smaller scale.
From our use of drones to the detention of terrorist suspects, the decisions that we are making now will define the type of nation and world that we leave to our children.
Mr. Obama has deployed drones more aggressively than President Bush. For that, the president offered no apologies.
Dozens of highly skilled al-Qaeda commanders, trainers, bomb makers, and operatives have been taken off the battlefield. Plots have been disrupted that would have targeted international aviation, U.S. transit systems, European cities, and our troops in Afghanistan. Simply put, these strikes have saved lives.
But they have also killed hundreds of civilians. And this week, Mr. Obama ordered sharp new limits on drone killings, with the Pentagon, not the CIA, calling the shots.
And before any strike is taken, there must be near certainty that no civilians will be killed or injured.
The Justice Department has acknowledged that 4 American citizens had been killed in drone strikes. Today, the president said only one of them was specifically targeted.
Did you hear that? He said no apologies given. Now, can you imagine if Donald Trump said no apologies given when there were civilians killed? In fact, 4 American citizens. Can you imagine the rage and the protest that would have ensued? I can't even imagine that. But was President Obama impeached or indicted after this no apologies given for his actions? No, he was not. But let's push further and talk more about civilians killed in drone strikes, as President Obama was pressed by this question. Cut to the clip.
I think there's been, in the past, legitimate criticism that the architecture, the legal architecture around the use of drone strikes or other kinetic strikes wasn't as precise as it should have been, and there's no doubt that civilians were killed that shouldn't have been. I think that over the last several years, we have worked very hard to avoid and prevent those kinds of tragedies from taking place. In situations of war, we have to take responsibility when we're not acting appropriately, or where we've just made mistakes, even with the best of intentions. And that's what we're going to continue to try to do. What I can say with great confidence is that our operating procedures are as rigorous as they have ever been.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? They weren't as precise as they should have been. He admitted that out loud. More could have been done to avoid and prevent the deaths of American citizens. Can you believe that he could say that out loud and not incite riots today? He said that mistakes are made with the best of intentions. However, he was acting under his authority as the commander-in-chief protecting the United States. Now, let's go back to the boat strike, where 2 individuals were killed after the initial strike, and they were narco-terrorists. They were not civilians. They were not U.S. citizens. And there has been nothing but rage and uproar, and the Democrats calling for the impeachment of the president and for Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to be accused, convicted of war crimes. Now, that's quite a contrast, quite an interesting contrast. But as we look all throughout history and we wonder why there's such scrutiny given on this president, and there are reasons why, but we'll get into that in another video. But let's think about how many civilians were killed in wars in the past. The biggest one that we can think of is the ending of World War II with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. How many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people lost their lives? Innocent victims, civilians of the country of Japan. But was the president indicted at the time for war crimes? Well, let's check out this last clip, because Senator Ted Cruz is going to bring up some very interesting questions as he reviews the history of presidential actions. Let's cut to this final clip.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The nub of the Democrats' argument today is that the concept of presidential immunity is somehow unprecedented, is somehow remarkable. That claim is utterly ahistorical and disconnected from the entire constitutional history of the Republic. General Mukasey, before 2023, how many times has the President of the United States been indicted?
None.
Before 2023, how many times has a former President of the United States been indicted?
None.
In the last 2 years, how many times has President Donald J. Trump been indicted?
4 times, I believe.
Now, many presidents of both parties have engaged in controversial actions, and yet none of them have been indicted. Let me ask you, General Mukasey, if a private citizen were to erect an internment camp and to forcibly kidnap American citizens, to single them out because of race, and to imprison them based on their race, would that private citizen be subject to criminal prosecution?
Would.
When President Franklin Delano Roosevelt did the exact same thing and erected Japanese internment camps, was FDR prosecuted?
He was not.
Let me ask you, similarly, if a private citizen were, say, to detonate a nuclear weapon over a city and kill over 140,000 people, and then if that private citizen a few days later detonated another nuclear bomb over another city and killed 75,000 people, could that private citizen be criminally prosecuted?
He would.
Was President Harry Truman prosecuted for detonating nuclear weapons over Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
He was not.
All right, how about this? If a private citizen launched a weaponized drone and killed a United States citizen, could that private citizen be criminally prosecuted?
He would.
Was President Barack Obama criminally prosecuted when he killed United States citizens using drones without notice and without due process?
He was not.
Well, Senator Cruz laid it all out right there. It was plain and simple. So I guess for all the people that are so upset about these strikes, should we just allow these narco-terrorists to continue importing the fentanyl into the United States and give them due process after a couple 100,000 people are addicted and lose their lives from those drug addictions? I don't know. Are we protecting the wrong people? Or is it right to take care of the problem before hundreds of thousands of people in the United States lose their lives? Well, we do have the outrage, and the arguments rage on. So what's the reason, you ask? Well, it's a very interesting and delicate psychological phenomenon, and it's called Trump derangement syndrome. Now, it's not really the fault of the people that suffer from this. The reason is because there is one big glaring difference between President Barack Obama, who acted under his authority to protect the United States and its citizens, and President Donald Trump, who acts in his authority to protect citizens of the United States, both of which were acting within their authority. So what is that big difference? Well, I hate to say it, it's communication skill. President Barack Obama was one of the greatest communicators of any president that we have ever had. President Donald Trump is not a great communicator. He might have the right reasoning, the right mindset, his motives are right, but when he opens up his mouth, he does not have the ability to parlay those thoughts, those processes, the logic and the reasoning to the American people. And for those who are not of the Republican Party or the MAGA Party, well, it sets them off in a way that we have never seen from any president in the history of the United States. Now, let me show you one more video that has sparked outrage, where we are now listening to accusations of President Donald Trump of being a pirate.
I want to show you some video that has just been posted on the X account of the Attorney General Pam Bondi. It is what Nancy and I were just discussing, the seizure of an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. It's interesting that the Attorney General would post this on X. I'm going to try. I've never seen this video before. You're seeing it as I'm seeing it. Obviously, helicopter belaying down, coming onto the deck of the oil tanker, and then making efforts that appear very successful to, with, as I see it there, guns drawn, take possession on behalf of the U.S. government of this oil tanker. President Trump told reporters earlier this afternoon it was necessary for the U.S. government to do this. He didn't explain why. When asked where it was heading, he didn't say. Asked what would become of the oil on board, he said, I suspect we will take it. So that is what we know visually of what happened off the coast of Venezuela.
So has President Donald Trump gone rogue? Is he a Somali pirate? Is this the way that the United States is going to behave from this point on? Well, if you want to hear the reasoning and the true story behind the capturing of that Venezuelan oil rig, well, you're going to have to like and hit the subscribe button and tick the notification bell, because that's coming in the next video. But for now, I want you to post in the comments. Answer this question. Do you think it was wrong to strike that boat a second time, where we saw the lives of the two narco-terrorists go down to the depths of the ocean? Or do you think that it was justified? Also, what do you think is more important? The due process of narco-terrorists, where we protect their right to have a day in court before they're executed, or the lives of tens of thousands of American citizens who die from fentanyl drug abuse? That's all I've got for this one. It's been controversial, but let's get the discussion going in the comment section right now. This is Carlton Flowers, and that's all I've got for this one. I am out.